Hey, I'm Jordan McKelly, that's Mitchell Balla, and welcome to Cover Your Balls. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. Ohio State and Michigan just got canceled, and Jim Harbaugh is still a douche. A lot of stuff going on in the NFL. Are the Browns Super Bowl contenders, Mitch? We'll find out. We'll find out shortly. Bills are still rolling. Go Bills. A lot of things to talk about. We're going to even hop into some college basketball that's starting to get canceled as well in larger numbers. Going to hop into a little of everything, even some Logan Paul. And, well, we'll save that for later in the segment. Logan Paul is going to box somebody in the new year, and we're going to find out soon. But it is 4 o'clock, so let's go ahead and do our top 4 at 4. This week we have top 4 man crushes. Mitch, go ahead and give me your top 4 man crushes. 4 through 1.
4 through 1? All right. This is, when you asked me this question, I came up with a lot of options and for different reasons. Number 4, though, Dan Bilzerian. I mean, the guy lives the life, has as many women as he wants at his house, a lot of money, just seems like he has the life. So he's at number 4. Number 3 is Lil Dicky, a.k.a. Dave Bird. Phenomenal rapper. Yes, whenever he decides to drop music. But hey, I would love to be Lil Dicky. I think he is hilarious. Number 2, this was a tough one for me. I took Adam Levine. Dude can sing. Women love guys that can sing, and he's a good-looking guy. I'm not going to lie here. So Adam Levine comes in at 2, and then at number 1, for one reason, it's Ryan Reynolds, and it's because he is married to Blake Lively, who is my celebrity wife. She doesn't know that, but well, now she will because she'll be watching this. I know she will. So Ryan Reynolds at 1, Levine at 2, Lil Dicky at 3, and Dan Bilzerian at 4 for my top 4 man crushes at 4.
Wow, that's a strong list. I like Ryan Reynolds. I could have he's probably one of the first ones out for me. At number 4, I have The Rock. If you've never seen Ballers before, it's an HBO original series, incredible. It covers like 5 seasons of what the NFL is like. He's at number 4 for so many reasons. Number 3, Ryan Gosling. I've watched The Notebook maybe 45 times. That's just one reason that I love Ryan Gosling. Maybe I just want to look like him. He's a stud. At number 2, I have David Goggins. Can't Hurt Me is my favorite book of all time. I've gone through it over 5 times. The audiobook is spectacular. David Goggins at number 2. Number 1, I have Joe Rogan. Need I say any more? I mean, Joe Rogan is my spirit animal. Joe Rogan is who I aspire to be every day. That is my top 4 man crushes, and that is our top 4 at 4. Mitch, let's really start to get into some stuff.
We got a lot to get to.
Oh, we have a lot to get to. Like I said, Ohio State versus the Michigan was canceled, and that I broke that news about an hour ago. No, I didn't really break that news, but that did happen about an hour ago. We are going to get that later. Talk about that later in our segments in segment 3. But let's start with segment 1. NFL. Wow. The Browns are a serious football team. Like, holy shit, we have a real team that is living off of Lake Erie. What did you think about the games versus the Titans, and were you surprised that we were able to put up 38 points and a half?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a franchise record, so if anybody says they're not surprised, they're lying because it hasn't happened before.
Exactly.
You and I both said on our last show on Thursday, episode 5, which is on our YouTube page. If you missed that, go check it out. That we expected the Titans to win. We were hoping the Browns kept it close. I don't think you or I, in our wildest dreams, imagined Baker Mayfield going for 334 yards, 4 touchdowns in the first half. I mean, this Cleveland Brown team that showed up on Sunday, in the first half at least, looked like one of the best football teams in all of the NFL, not just the AFC. And I'm really interested to see if they can carry that over into Monday night next week against the Ravens.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think one thing that I'm worried about when I was designing my power rankings this week was, I definitely have some bias for every Cleveland team, but so much more bias for the Browns just because that's my favorite sports team, period. And so when I was making my power rankings, I was like, man, am I too high on the Browns or are they that good? And I think Sunday solidified why I have them so high in my power rankings, and we're going to go over that shortly. But oh my gosh, like, we have a real football team. Mitch, since 1999, discounting this year, we only have 101 wins. That's 4.8 wins a year. If you take out this year, where we have 9 already, we've only had 3 winning seasons. In this year, I saw an analyst the other day say, well, there's not many analytics that jump out at you when looking at the Browns. Really, dude? Are the Browns rushing attack's number 1 in the league with 1,893 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4.9 yards per carry. The only reason we don't have more touchdowns is because we are a very, very efficient passing team inside the red zone, and that is the only reason why we only have 12 touchdowns, and that's because everybody crowds the box when the Browns are in the red zone, because you have the fear of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Our turnover differential is number 4 in the league. That's unbelievable. When you're not giving the team more chances to score, and you're turning, the Browns were number 1, and I'm not sure where they were earlier in the season of points off turnover. So that means we don't only get turnovers, Mitch, but we turn those turnovers into points, which is enormous, and that is a very important statistic. And obviously our rushing defense is number 9. We've been really beat up in the secondary because we've had people out for the year. Grant Delpit was out before the season, I believe, with an ACL. Greedy Williams hasn't played a game since 19. Yeah, we have this guy named Greedy Williams who hasn't played a game since 1917. That's a little before our time.
Yeah, never heard of him.
So the Browns have been playing exceptional football. The analytics show it, and the eye test shows it when you watch the Browns. I mean, holy smokes. You would have thought there was a domestic dispute going on at the house on Sunday, because by myself, I'm watching the game on the computer, and I am just saying the most ridiculous things. You would have thought there was I was having a party at the house, but I'm so impressed with the Browns, and I just can't believe how good we are, and it's a little shocking to me.
I agree. I mean, we had been waiting all year, and for everyone that complains about who the Browns have played, the Browns can only play who's on their schedule. So just go. That's usually how it works. Although apparently these other teams just get to schedule everybody according to their fans, Yeah. So the Chiefs can just pick who they play all the time, but the Browns no. We were waiting for a signature win. Before this, it was probably the Indianapolis win at home in week 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the Browns delivered. I mean, they have changed the narrative now of being a fake team, a fake playoff contender, the worst 8-3 team of all time, which if you say that, you're full of shit. So get out. The Browns manhandled the Titans, a team that's very physical. And they manhandled their running back, who usually manhandles anybody else in the league. 60 yards and his first fumble in over a year. I mean, they went in there, took care of business, shorthanded on defense still. No Denzel Ward. It was great to see, and we had said that last week against the Titans and this upcoming week against the Ravens are the 2 biggest games in franchise history, and right now we're 1-0, and they have a chance to go 2-0 and clinch a playoff spot, Jordan. Do you know what that is? Do you know?
I really don't.
Yeah, because I don't either. So apparently if they win, they'll get something that means we're automatically going to the playoffs if we lose out. That's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
But we'll have to wait and see. But, man, I can't say enough. That was probably the best first half of football I've ever watched as a Browns fan. Best half of football ever. Second half, I was a little worried, but a win's a win.
We don't know what it's like to be up 28 points. I mean,
exactly.
What do you call when you're up 28 points? The Browns were up 38-7 at half. Not only were they up 38-7, but Tennessee is known for bullying teams, like straight bullying teams, not only physically but psychologically. And the Browns absolutely pushed them around. They wanted the game more. It was an away game, which is unbelievable that they played that well away against a team like nobody has been saying this, but the Titans rolled the Colts the week before.
Oh, yeah.
We played
in Indy.
I mean, rolled the Colts. Rolled them. And the week before that, guess what? Derrick Henry in overtime ran for 40 yards, broke away to beat the Ravens. So the Titans have been playing really good football. It's not that we caught the Titans at a bad time. I think it was just a bad time for the Titans to play the Browns, and everybody thought it was kind of in reverse order. Baker Mayfield was just making throws. I mean, if Peoples-Jones catches the ball in the first drive, that means that would have been 6 straight drives of a touchdown. 6 drives in a row of a touchdown. And I'm tired of people talking about, well, Baker doesn't play anybody. He's only throwing against Cincinnati and stuff. No. scratch the narrative now. That's not how this went, because the reason our defense looked so good in the first half is because they couldn't really run the ball. We put them in a position, Mitch, where they had to pass the ball. I mean, blink your eyes, 17-0, just like that.
Yep.
I mean, the game got ugly quick, and it was. I mean, we don't know what it's like to be up. Who expects to be up 31? What the hell did what did Stefanski say at halftime? Like, what do you say when you've done? We pretty much played a perfect half of football.
Exactly.
Perfect half of football.
And this is a young team that's never been there before. So when you look at that second half, I mean, you have to pick your poison on, do we keep going with the same thing in the first half, which if everything goes wrong, a pass gets tipped and a pick six going the other way, easy score like that. Somebody gets hurt. You don't know, but this is a young team, one of the youngest in the NFL that's never been there before, and they still held on. And for this narrative of Baker Mayfield, if it's so easy, can you name me the other quarterback that's thrown for 4 touchdowns and a half this year?
It's probably Russell Wilson.
No, it's
Aaron
actually
Rodgers?
Baker Mayfield against the Bengals. Oh, so that's right.
You were talking about another guy who's thrown. Never mind. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, you're fine. Well, can you tell me the last quarterback before Baker Mayfield to do it? Throw 4 touchdowns in the first half? Because apparently, for all the Baker haters, it's really easy. So I was wondering if you knew.
No, I'm not a Baker hater, so I
Oh,
don't
okay.
count those statistics. All I know
Well, I
is
have the stats. I have them ready for all the Baker haters because the last person was Pat Mahomes in week 2 of 2019. That guy's pretty good. I'm not saying Baker Mayfield's Pat Mahomes by any means, but get off of Baker. It's over. He played like a franchise quarterback. He's getting better. Is what? 12th game in a new system that he didn't have a preseason for?
Yeah.
You Baker haters better go find someone else to hate on now. Hate on Donovan Peoples-Jones. Drop the ball just like Michigan does every year. So no shock there, but Baker's back and Baker's here to stay.
Caught a big one later in the game, though, and he caught it in stride. I mean, it was a great pass by Baker, obviously.
Great play call.
It was also a good catch, and he burned the defense. He looked like a real wide receiver, and it looks like he's actually emerging for that. But we have a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump over the Browns real quick because we're going to get back to that. We're going to jump into the NFC standings. Like I said, there was a ton of stuff. We even have a game tonight, but in the NFC. We have the Packers leading up north still. The Vikings making a charge. They're not going to be able to win the division, Mitch, but they're right there. In the West, we have the Rams over top the Seahawks. The Seahawks dropped a game against the Giants that, honestly, me and you aren't that surprised about because me and you have been high on the Giants since they started their run. To get to the Giants are leading the East at 5-7, but Washington, with a huge win over Pittsburgh last night, is right there at 5-7 too. Going up to the South, we have the Saints with whoever they have at quarterback whenever they play at 10-2. Arguably the best team in the definitely the best team in the conference, arguably in the NFL. Wild card is wild, Mitch.
Wild.
I mean, 6 through 12 separates 2 games, but 7 through 12 separates 1 game. Who's the most likely to come out of that 7 through 12?
Jordan, it's a good question, and before this past weekend, I would have had a clear-cut answer for you, but the Cardinals have fallen off. That looks like a team that hasn't been there or done that before with a very inexperienced head coach. I don't hate to say it, but the Vikings, who are one of the streakiest teams in all of football, they look like the team that's going to get that 7th playoff spot, and you've been calling that all year. You were high on the Vikings, and right now, they survived the scare from Mike Glennon and the Jaguars. They just got to handle their business because they're taking advantage of the loser of this past weekend Rams and Cardinals game, like we had touched on last week. I really think it's the Vikings spot to lose. Yeah,
there's a lot going on, so I will definitely know more after this week because there's a lot of key matchups. But it's getting wild. Had the Vikings been able to hold on, was it last week? They should have got that win, and they dropped that game. Not last week, the week before. I can't think of the
2
game.
weeks. Yep. Cowboys.
The Cowboys, they should have won that game, and I'm sure they're kicking themselves about that. But that's probably my team to come out. I have to have some integrity. That's the team I've been saying for weeks. I'm going to stick with the Vikings. And Kirk Cousins has a lot of confidence. I mean, he was on the Pat McAfee show, which shows you he's not really shy to talk about the season. He feels confident with where the Vikings are at. He understands that one of the reasons why they were people were so low on him is because they were losing every game to start the year because they were hurt. They had a lot of guys banged up. So he has a lot of confidence. I like the Vikings, and Justin Jefferson is as good as anybody, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL, averaging 17 yards per catch, which is 4th in the NFL, and we'll get to
That's
that
good.
later. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. That's unbelievable. Let's go ahead and jump into the AFC, Mitch. We got the Steelers at 11-1. They dropped their first game last night, and wow, only 2 games separate the Steelers from the Browns, and the Browns and the Steelers play again. Ravens.
We're alive.
Yeah, Ravens still have a shot to get in the playoffs. 6-5. Big game tonight versus the Cowboys. We'll see what Lamar Jackson looks like coming back off the COVID reserve list. In the West, we have the Chiefs, 4 games ahead of the Raiders. It's their division. Now the question is, can they secure the number 1 seed? They have an enormous game coming up with the Saints, so we'll keep an eye on that. In the South, we have the Titans. The Titans are 8-4. The Colts are 8-4, and that is going to come down to the wire. That's probably going to be who the Browns play in the playoffs. We'll keep a close eye on that. In the East, that is the wrong record. The Bills are actually 9-3. I needed to update this list again, and I missed it. Bills are 9-3. Dolphins at 8-4. And holy shit, the Patriots are still hanging around, Mitch, at 6-6. Looking at this division, especially the back end, who do you think is going to get that last spot? And there's your favorite team, the Raiders, just one game out of wild card contention. So, Mitch, who is that 7th team to come out of the AFC?
Well, it's not the damn Las Vegas Raiders. I can tell you that because they're a fraud and they suck. Almost losing the damn winless Jets. But anyways, we're over that.
Calling it. You were calling it last week. Unbelievable. I cannot believe that game came down to the wire. And
it should have ended with a Jets win. But we'll talk about that. Oh, I don't even want to get started on that because the Jets have one win right now. But the Raiders are frauds, so it's not them. Mm-hmm. I really think the playoffs are going to end with how they are right now, Jordan. I think the Colts and the Titans obviously are each going to get a spot. Mm-hmm. The Browns are going to get a spot, whether the likelihood of them winning the division is very slim, but whether it's through the division or a wild card spot, it's theirs. And I think I like the Dolphins right now. However, they didn't look convincing over the Bengals with Tua coming back. Mm-hmm. I could see them faltering, but if it's not them, dare I say the New England Patriots, because they have the tiebreaker over the Raiders.
And guess who they play still? They play the Dolphins.
Dolphins, exactly.
Some head-to-head matchups that could definitely tilt it one way or the other. So
absolutely. It looks, to me, in my opinion, 2 teams are coming out of the AFC South, the AFC East, and the AFC North. I mean, regardless of how that works, the Bills have the East wrapped up, but it's either going to be the Pats or the Dolphins. Colts are the Titans, and then the Browns or the Steelers, probably the Browns, though.
Yeah, if they can get average quarterback play from Cam Newton, the Patriots 100% can win out. I don't care who they play. I'm not surprised the Patriots won this past week, Mitch. I'm surprised with how they won. I mean, Cam Newton had 69 passing yards, I believe, and they won 49-0. It is almost impossible in this league to shut out teams. I mean, it's impossible to shut out teams that are historically bad. It's really hard to do. And I knew that Bill Belichick was going to have an advantage over Herbert because he's a rookie, and no young quarterbacks play well versus Bill Belichick. He's just been doing it for a long time, and he has a system for that. But how they did it was very surprising. If they, their defense and everything is going to be – the Patriots always rise and get better at this time of the year. There's been a lot of years where they don't start out hot, and they've won the Super Bowl. So if they can run the table and get in, I'd like them to not only, play a game in, January, but maybe win a game in January, because that could be a bad matchup for somebody.
Oh, that'll be a bad matchup for a lot of teams, specifically because of who the coach is on the other side. Bill Belichick, he game plans the best out of almost any coach in the NFL if he's not already the best. And you've seen that. Go back to earlier this year where the Patriots went in to Arrowhead and hung with Kansas City with Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham as their quarterback. We talked about this earlier, Jordan, when we were talking about the Bears before we started the show. Average quarterback play will win you a lot of games. Below average quarterback play will single-handedly lose you games. And that's why they lost the Chiefs this year. They're a scary team at 6-6. And I hate to say that because I really thought the dynasty was over, but I wouldn't want to play them. I don't know any team that would want to play them specifically because Belichick is a mastermind.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that they're still winning games, but they were asking earlier in the season, all over TV, who is going to win the divorce, Brady or Belichick? And I thought didn't think it was even a fair question. I think it was definitely going to be Bill before the season started, and I still think it's Bill. How do the Patriots have one less win than the Buccaneers? And the Buccaneers have, wait for it, Mike Evans, good win. They have Cameron Brate. They have Rob Gronkowski.
Brady.
And Antonio Brown. And that's just some of their players. They have star players all over the place. I mean, they have like 3 Pro Bowl wide receivers. How do you have 7 wins? I think that, and it's funny that they're struggling right now. It's kind of reminiscent of what it was. You know, the Browns had one of the best wide receiving rooms before the year started. And, hey,
Yeah.
you know, the Browns lose Odell, and it's not Odell's fault. It's how Kevin Stefanski runs his offense. You know, getting Odell out was the best thing, and I think the Bucs have almost too many weapons, and so it'll be interesting. But who do you think wins that, or who has won the divorce so far, the Bucs or the Patriots, in your opinion?
And it depends on how you look at it. If you're going off the record, obviously the Bucs win it by a game, but who had more expectations coming into the year? It was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was, they're going to be the first home team to ever play in the Super Bowl when it's in their home stadium. It's the NFC South goes through Tampa. No, it doesn't. It goes through New Orleans. It always has, and it will continue that way. There weren't any expectations on the Patriots, and here they are. Yeah, they're 6-6. They're in the playoff hunt with a quarterback that nobody in the league wanted because of his injury history in Cam Newton, and he's not playing great. You and I wish he was, but right now, the winner is the Patriots because they don't have issues with their coaching staff and players like the Buccaneers do between Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and other players in that team. You have a bunch of unselfish players in New England. You have a bunch of selfish players in Tampa. And right now, that's the difference. They're happy and some unhappy.
Well, what if I told you that the Patriots have more wins than Cam Newton has passing touchdowns? Would you believe me?
I'd believe you because I have eyes.
Yeah, Patriots have 6 wins, and Cam Newton has 5 passing touchdowns. Not only 5 passing touchdowns, he has, you know, he's really costed the Patriots, honestly. I mean, the Patriots are obviously better off with Cam Newton than they are with Brian Hoyer or Jarrett Stidham, but, I mean, I don't know by what margin because, you know, he fumbles the ball on the game-winning drive against the Bills when they were down 3 at Buffalo's, 30-yard line. He gets stuffed at Seattle's 1. You know, MVPs, especially past MVPs, figure out a way to get the ball in the end zone. I think Cam Newton is on his way out, and this might be his last year as a starting quarterback if the Patriots can't find anybody else, because I don't think anybody else is going to take a chance on Cam Newton. But, you know, we just went over the standings, the AFC and the NFC. Let's hop into your power rankings. My power rankings definitely shifted from last week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because there was a lot of huge games. Not just a lot of huge wins for teams, a lot of huge losses for teams that I was a little higher on, but they've dropped in my power rankings. What are your power rankings, 1 through 10?
Well, Jordan, I have a familiar face at number 1, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. They keep winning. They're still the best team, in my opinion. They're just bored, like I've said all year. Number 2, we finally get to move the Steelers out of there. They were up there only because they were undefeated. Number 2 is the Saints. They keep winning no matter who's playing quarterback. And if they keep that up and Drew Brees comes back and is the Drew Brees of the glue factory, then the Saints are going to be the team to beat in the NFC. 3 is the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is playing MVP level. 4, the Buffalo Bills, getting a huge win against the Niners last night on Monday Night Football. 5, the Cleveland Browns. I can't believe I just said that.
You love to hear it.
But the way the Browns are playing right now, they're better than all the other teams behind them. And that's how I do my power ranking. The Browns are better than the Rams right now, who I have at 6, but the Rams are playing good football. The Browns are better than the Titans at 7. They just beat them. They manhandled them. The Browns are better than the Colts. They beat them. They're playing better football. They're better than the Dolphins, who struggled with a Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals team. And right now, I truly believe the Browns would beat the Steelers with how we're playing football. And the Steelers are at 10 for me.
Wow.
There's
You have the Steelers at 10?
Steelers are at 10.
Oh, I don't know about that. That's crazy.
They've looked vulnerable the past few weeks. They've lost Bud Dupree now. Devin Bush was already out for the year. They lost another key defensive player last night. James Conner is out with COVID because of his weak immune system, because of his battle with cancer. right now, everything going wrong for the Steelers is going wrong. They struggled with RG3 and Trace McSorley last week. They lose to the Washington football team last night, which they aren't a bad team, but let's be honest. It's not a team they should lose to. The Browns beat them.
It's bad. It's a bad loss.
It's a bad loss. And the Steelers right now, after finally losing a game and looking so vulnerable to me, have dropped 8 spots from 2 to 10. And that's how I like my top 10 for the power rankings right now.
Wow. That, you dropping the Steelers to 10 is a little, I'm gonna give you some pushback on that. Let's go through my list. At number 10, I have the Buccaneers. What I was looking like between the Dolphins, the Buccaneers, the Raiders, and everything. I just think the Bucs will get it together enough to scare some teams in the playoffs. And I think if the Dolphins played the Bucs straight up, I think two would have a really hard time with the Bucs. So I have the Bucs at 10. Seattle at 9. That was the biggest drop for me. I think last week I had Seattle at 4 or 5. I had the Packers in Seattle, I think at 4. No, at 5 and 6 maybe. Seattle drops to 9. Every week we see something else that Seattle does very poorly. And they just really struggled. I thought that their defensive line was finally, they are one of the top teams in the NFL with sacks, but the problem is their secondary is so poor. I have them at 9. I can't put them any higher. The Rams might be, one of the best teams in the NFL on any given day. It just depends what Jared Goff you get. I have them at 8. At 7, I have the Titans. The Titans are still, when the Titans do what they do at their best, the Titans at their best is as good as anybody else in the NFL. They just need better secondary play. I thought Baker would pick apart the Titans going into the game, and that just forever solidified how bad and how poor the Titans secondary is. I have them at 7. Packers at 6. I trust Aaron Rodgers. They're still not a very tough team, so I don't know if I trust them in the playoffs. They're like a very finesse team, and I just don't know how. That doesn't win you championships. Everything will have to go perfect. Luckily for them, Mitch, they're going to have home field advantage for some games if they can close this out, and possibly they could get the number 1 seed. We'll see. Right. Bills at 5. I've been high on the Bills for a long time. Not high on Josh Allen. Not high on Josh Allen like you are, thinking he's an MVP candidate. However, I will say that it's pretty easy to make a case for him. But between Sean McDermott and that Bills defense, man, that is a tough team, and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. The Browns at 4. I have the Cleveland Browns at 4. I don't have the Cleveland Browns at 4 because I love the Cleveland Browns. I have the Cleveland Browns at 4 because I truly believe that the Cleveland Browns are the 4th best team in football. I truly believe that. Like I said, they're number 9 in rush defense overall in the NFL. They're number 1 rushing attack. Now they do have the 22nd pass, 22nd. They're 22nd in the league for passing offense. But when they do pass the ball, it is very strategic and they're very successful at doing so. And Baker's not turning the ball over and hasn't turned the ball over in quite some time. The Steelers at number 3. That was the best thing that could have happened for the Steelers losing. I told you last week that the Steelers needed to lose a game just because. Mitch, have you ever taken a test before? And when the test is given to you, you look at it and you're like, well, shit. This isn't anything that I studied on the study guide. Like, the test and the study guide are 2 completely different things. And I think the Steelers got tested yesterday and they lost. And it is there's a lot more to learn from a loss than there is a win. Anybody who would say otherwise, I would strongly disagree with. Sometimes when you win shitty games, Mitch, you don't really dive as deep as you need to dive in the analytics and the film to figure out all of the things that you're doing wrong. And I think that game versus Washington was not a good loss at all. However, Washington's, front 7, and you said this to start the year when the Browns played Washington, and I gave you pushback, and I was wrong, and you were 100% right. That is one of the best defensive lines in all the NFL, and they put Joe Burrow's ass on IR. So, yeah, that's what I got. The Steelers at 3 because of TJ Watt. Still trust the defense. Mike Tomlin might be the best coach in football. Number 2, the Saints. The Saints could be the best team in football. However, when the Saints have, the Saints' lows are pretty low when they do have lows, specifically in the playoffs. And I'm trying to not let past years distort my view of how I view the Saints, because I definitely think they're arguably the best coach team in the NFL. It's unbelievable that they can switch out quarterbacks year in and year out. The only other team that's successful like them have been the Patriots when they've needed a quarterback, when their starting quarterback's been hurt or suspended. So there's that. And number one, Kansas City Chiefs, their lows just aren't that low. I mean, even at their worst, which I think we've seen the last couple of weeks, they ain't that bad. I don't think anybody's going to beat Kansas City, and I think they're bored. I think they're going to figure things out, and that's my power rankings. Sorry, I took a little more time with that, but I'm really excited to see how this changes from week to week. But
I mean, you look at our power rankings from last week, and they've changed a lot. I mean, we were both high on the Seahawks, although I don't consider it a bad loss because you and I are high on the Giants right now, but it was still a team that we figured would go in and handle business. But it's interesting to see what's going to happen, especially with the Chiefs and Saints playing here soon. I mean, that's going to be a huge game, and the loser very may well find themselves out of home field advantage throughout the playoffs. If you think about it, I mean, so it'll be a really good game. I can't wait to see what changes. Maybe the Browns go up. Maybe the Browns are at 1. Who knows?
I mean, if the Browns run the table, hey, why not? I'll do it. So, can the Browns make it to where it's possible that when they play the Steelers, they have a chance to take charge in the AFC North? Do we have a shot?
Oh, we have a shot. We have a realistic shot, but will it happen? I don't know. I mean, the Browns would have to win out, but let's put it this way. The Browns have to win their next 3 games, which I think is very doable. And the Steelers would have to lose 2 of their next 3, which they play the Bills. It's a tough game. They play the Bengals, not tough. And then they play the Colts. Those are 2 tough games. I mean, it's real. It could really happen with a winner take all coming in week 17 in Cleveland 3rd. But will it happen? I don't know. But the fact that they lost to the Washington football team last night opened the door for some hope. And I think the Browns players realize that. And I think the Steelers realize that too. You might see a different team now for the next few weeks because they know what's at stake. They want that home playoff advantage, but man, wouldn't that be something if the Browns somehow win out and get the AFC North?
Well, I think what's scary for the Steelers is that some of the problems they're having right now, it's not because they're it is because they're not playing well, but it's because they've had some roster changes. They've had some really key players go out for the season. And so, not only are they trying to game plan, but they're trying to put people, into the fold who haven't really been in games as a starter yet this year. So we'll see what, adjustments Mike Tomlin can make. Mike Tomlin is, I say this every week. He's arguably the best coach in football. I love Mike Tomlin. I love his message, and I love his press conferences. I have a couple friends in my life, Mitch, that are just like Mike Tomlin. They give me pep talks like that, and I appreciate people like Mike Tomlin. I don't think we catch him, though. I don't think we catch him.
I don't either.
I think we're going to end up being the 5th and 6th seed. And you know what really pisses me off is when I'm looking at the playoff standings for the AFC and the NFC, is there are teams. So say we have the same record as the Colts and the Titans, and we've beaten both those teams head to head. And
Correct.
Guess what? When the playoffs come, guess who we'll be playing? We'll be playing one of those 2 teams if we have the same record, and we're playing at their place. That rule is ridiculous. We need to change the way playoff teams. Not only do the Browns play in a tougher division where they have to play 2 teams that are incredibly tough 2 times a year, but even if they outperform the Titans or the Colts for the season, they still have to play an away game. I hate it. They need to change it. I mean, it's dumb in my opinion. But
the same can be said for the NFC, that the NFC East winner is going to host a team in the playoffs that has a better record than them. I mean, I know what the NFL wants to do, but it needs to be changed because there's no reason a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, a Seattle Seahawks team, or Rams team for that sake should be traveling to New York to play a team that didn't even go above 500. Yeah, it makes no sense.
Well, and even if they do go 500, like let's say they do, because I think the Giants or the Redskins will be a very. I mean, it's pretty safe to say that it's between those 2 teams. Both those teams extremely tough outs, in my opinion. Especially for the teams that were looking at the bottom of the NFC that would have to play there. Man, that could be first round playoff exit for somebody like, dare I say, Russell Wilson or Tom Brady. That it's going to be dangerous. We're going to keep an eye on that. One thing that really pissed you off this past weekend from watching the game, and it's something that you voiced to me before, is the fact that Myles Garrett, it's unbelievable how he's officiated in the league, because the refs, I don't think, are that fair across the board with all players. And I'm gonna let you have first take at this, because I know where I stand, and I think I stand on the opposite side. So go ahead.
Right, and we've talked about it, but I do think, there were some pretty egregious non-calls this past Sunday against the Titans. He's getting hands to the face constantly, if not in his face mask. He is getting held on almost every play, but you could call holding every play in the NFL. But there are some that are egregious that they're missed. Jordan, I believe Myles Garrett's being officiated differently because of the incident last year against the Steelers and Mason Rudolph. I think that the NFL, I guess you could say, has an agenda for him, but they're not going to help him out because of how he acted last year and the incident he caused in the field. And to me, that's wrong, because you've had other guys in the field before who have assaulted women, started fights on the football field by ripping helmets off. Okay, maybe they didn't hit him, but we've seen other players before and nothing happens. So Myles Garrett is being officiated unfairly, and I just want to see it fixed because he's that dominant of a player. All the things he's done this year has been while he's been officiated poorly. Imagine him getting the benefit of the doubt. Where would he be in the sack numbers for the leaders of the league, or tackles for losses, or forced fumbles and strip sacks? Who knows? I just hope to see that it gets changed, but I don't think it will be, because I think the league has something out for him.
Yeah, I'm going to take the opposite stance. I definitely don't think the league has something out for him. But if they do, I'll tell you exactly what it's for. And it is not for ripping Mason Rudolph's helmet off and trying to beat him with it.
He was trying to put it back on his head.
No. I don't scratch that. That's not what bothered me about the situation. I'm a huge Myles Garrett fan, but then he came out and said Mason Rudolph said something that I don't think Mason Rudolph said, because I remember watching this, like, the incident closely and leading up to it. After the incident, and the information that Mason Rudolph said something, he never brought that up until it was like 4 days after, until he realized, holy shit, I'm in a real bad spot. I'm getting a ton of flack for what I did to Mason Rudolph. I'm going to say this. I don't think he said that. I think the league would be more upset about that. Frankly, I am, if I'm the league, because that's the last thing, is you don't want more politics in the NFL with, do we have a racist backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I don't think he said that at all. And I'm tired of seeing tweets and stuff that says, well, you have all of this audio coverage, but you don't have the audio between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. Mitch, that was in a packed stadium. No one could hear what was on the field from there. And somebody was trying to compare last year to this year, as if there's a ton of fans in the stands. Of course you can hear everything the players are saying. You can hear it during the game, them drop F-bombs the whole game. But if it is, I think that's why. But this is the real reason why I don't think it. And that was just a sidebar for it. Dwight Howard, LeBron James, Cam Newton are just some examples of and Shaquille O'Neal, what it looks like to be so physically dominant, not just like physically dominant your play, but just how you look. You look like a specimen that was shipped here from another planet. And so it takes a lot more force to move some of these players, and you have to really, really, really get after them, because these aren't guys who flop. They don't flop. If you saw Myles Garrett flop like a lot of players do, maybe he gets more calls, but he loses respect from me that way. I don't want any Anderson Varejãos on my defensive line, and I respect Myles Garrett for not flopping, but I think that's just what happens when you're he was in the Sports Illustrated body issue. He's all muscle. All muscle. If he was a steak, it'd cost like $1,000 at Giant Eagle. Like, he's a big deal. I think that's why. I don't think the league's out to get him, but if they are out to get him, they're not out getting him, I think, the same way. We are 3/4 through the season, Mitch. We have some early awards to give out. Maybe some MVPs, some offensive, defensive rookie of the year, some coach of the years. Let's go ahead and start with your current MVP leading candidate for MVP this year.
It's Pat Mahomes.
Who's that?
This guy who's pretty good at throwing the football for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh,
He's the reason they can come in and play disinterested football and still win games because of the throws he makes and the playmakers he has around him. But yeah, for me right now, the MVP is Pat Mahomes.
absolutely. I have Pat Mahomes too. It's either him or Aaron Rodgers in my eyes. The only reason I give it to Pat Mahomes is the same reason I did when we talked about this last time. Pat Mahomes hasn't had any games where he's thrown a whole bunch of pick sixes and got blown out. The Kansas City Chiefs would not get blown out by anybody. And one of the reasons is Patrick Mahomes, who has 3,800 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions on the season. Aaron Rodgers' numbers mirror his, if not better in some categories, but I have to take Patrick Mahomes. Who do you have for Offensive Player of the Year so far?
This is a tough one. I want to say Nick Chubb, but if he doesn't qualify right now,
this is our show. You say whatever you want.
It should be Nick Chubb, but does he qualify technically? I don't know what the qualifications are for NFL Player of the Year or Offensive Player of the Year because there's qualifications in the NBA and MLB, so I don't know if it's different. If it's not him, it's got to be Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's second in the league in receiving, and he's a tight end. 1,114 receiving yards through week 13 in the NFL. He would be my pick. If Chubb qualifies, he's my pick. Nick Chubb's Offensive Player of the Year, but if he doesn't qualify, then it's Travis Kelce. Hands down.
I think that's a great pick. I can't argue with that at all. The kicker is there's a couple people for Kansas City who are either Tyreek Hill's over 1,000 yards already this season too. But I guess you're going to have multiple people over when Patrick Mahomes has almost 4,000 yards. I have Derrick Henry. He has 1,300 yards on the ground. The Titans aren't the Titans without Derrick Henry. The reason Ryan Tannehill is so efficient, I'm going to say he's so efficient because of Derrick Henry. I haven't seen Ryan Tannehill outside of Tennessee, outside of Adam Gase, so it's hard to say that the Tannehill wouldn't be the same quarterback with another running back. But Derrick Henry is just a man amongst boys. I have to have him. He has 1,300 yards. They're not the same team. And so that is my Offensive Player of the Year. Who you got for Defensive Player of the Year?
Defensive Player of the Year, although he's missed 2 games because of COVID, I'm still rocking with Myles Garrett because of the success the team has with him on the field. It's him or Aaron Donald, but right now I'm going Garrett still. He got back in the sack race this week. He's only a half a sack behind Aaron Donald, who has 11. But the 5 strip sacks this year is what sets him apart for me. Those are game-changing plays. They have resulted in huge wins and momentum boosts for the Browns. Myles Garrett's the Defensive Player of the Year, and he rightfully should be.
No doubt. I 100% agree with you. It's either him, Aaron Donald, or maybe you could say TJ Watt. He has 11 sacks, I believe, for the Steelers. They have arguably the best defense. But I have Myles Garrett as well. Just for the sheer reason that if you lined up TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, and Aaron Donald, and you asked me which one would produce the most points for you in a game, I would have to 100% go with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett in the Colts game, did he not have a safety, and he had a forced fumble that turned into 7 points? So Myles Garrett, just in one game, Mitch, was worth 9 points, and we've scored off other forced fumbles that he's had. I think outside of anybody who's run any touchdowns back, who for any cornerbacks, I think he has to be at the top of the list for being as responsible as anybody for the most points on the defensive side of the football. So,
I agree.
Offensive Rookie of the Year, Mitch. I know this
is
tough.
A tough one. This is a real tough one. I think. Well, let me put it this way: it's our show. Can we give it to a tackle, or does it have to be a playmaker?
It's Offensive Rookie of the Year, brother. It's whoever you believe is.
Well, it was going to be Joe Burrow until he got hurt. I mean, Jedrick Wills should be there for honorable mention, but I do like Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. He's having a phenomenal year.
That's who I have.
Yeah, he's a beast. On the opposite side of Adam Thielen, he's making plays. He's pretty much keeping the Vikings alive in the playoff hunt as well. Adam Thielen's been out a game or 2 this year, so I like Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, he's just 21st in the league with 61 receptions. But if you think about it, 61 receptions with 4 games left is a lot of receptions. That's a lot. It's just a real pass-heavy league right now. It's crazy that he's 21st in that. He's 4th in the league in passing yards with 1,039. He's 7th in 12th. He's tied for 12th with TDs and with 7 in 17 yards a catch. It's 4th in the league. I'll say it again, 17 yards a catch. That's unbelievable. I think I know who you got for Coach of the Year, but I need to hear it out of your mouth. Mitch, who you got for Coach of the Year?
Who is Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns?
Yes, sir.
He is Coach of the Year. Now, if Mike Tomlin had gone undefeated, you give it to him because that's something that never happens. Last time was the 72 Dolphins. Kevin Stefanski has entered the chat. Kevin Stefanski is staying in the chat, and Kevin Stefanski is your Coach of the Year.
I'd love to hear it. I'm going to have to go with Kevin Stefanski too, just because of everybody knows the history of the Cleveland Browns. So if you know the history of the Cleveland Browns, you understand how hard it's been for the Cleveland Browns to have a winning season, let alone make the playoffs. Browns are 9-3, and just not that. He has complete control over the locker room. It is, for all the nonsense that's gone on in Cleveland, they're not talking anymore. He has complete control in the locker room because people aren't coming out and saying just ridiculous things. We were a laughing stock last year, not because of our play, but because of how we handled a lot of situations. And he has cut all that shit out of here. I see Sam right now said, how about Flores? He's a top 5 coach in the league, in my opinion. Brian Flores came into an organization, though, that was really struggling to the point where Minka Fitzpatrick, Mitch, wanted to be traded out of there, and they got rid of him. They got rid of some of their best players. I think Brian Flores is right there, but the Browns have struggled for so long. We could give it to a lot of people because I think there's a lot of coaches who've done fine jobs, but Kevin Stefanski is my pick, and I believe that's the right pick. So
I agree. That is the right pick.
Yeah. Let's rock. We're going to hop into something else before we hop into any college football. Let's hop into some college basketball, Mitch. A lot of teams have been getting moved around. A lot of games have been getting canceled. Kentucky has its worst start in decades. They're 1-3 right now, and they've lost to some really bad teams.
Yes, they have.
Let's go over the top 25 poll. Take us through that.
All right, number 1 and 2 stayed the same. They were supposed to play each other last week, but Gonzaga is back at 1, 54 first place votes, Baylor at 2, and then we have the Big Ten representing with Iowa 3, Michigan State 4. Kansas coming in at 4 spots this week. Illinois fell a spot to 6. Houston, Creighton, Nova, and Duke. Your Duke Blue Devils round out the top 10. After that, no big changes. Wisconsin dropping 9 spots to 13, but nobody really, nothing major besides the fact that Kentucky has dropped out, as well as Oregon, 2 teams that people coming into the season were pretty high on. But Jordan, the Big Ten stays representing with 6 teams in the top 25. What did you think about the top 10, top 25 in general?
Yeah, it's what I thought it would be. There weren't any big surprises to me. I want to say that the Kentucky is surprising, and it is surprising that they're 1-3. But it's really not if you think about it, Mitch. Just think about it this way. You only have to play college basketball 1 year as a high school basketball player, and then you can go straight to the NBA. And so Kentucky has arguably the best recruiting class every year, so you expect most of those players to leave, and that's exactly what's happened. So college basketball, I used to follow it a lot more intensely, a lot closely, like really close. But I can't fall in love with players anymore because they're not there long enough for me to fall in love with them. They're there 1 year, 2 years. Back in the day, Duke would have four-year starters for their entire starting 5. I remember the 1 year they had John Shire, Nolan Smith, and Kyle Singler when they beat Butler in the championship. They were all seniors, and we don't see that anymore. Any surprises? Anything that really stands out to you?
Not really that I've watched. I think there's some games coming up that are really going to test some teams. Ohio State plays Notre Dame on the road tonight. They have North Carolina in the next 8 days, who's 16th in the country. So Ohio State's going to get tested before Big Ten play. But I'm really looking forward to the Big Ten conference getting started. Gonzaga and Baylor already announced they're going to reschedule that game. They got canceled for COVID related issues. So that'll be a huge one. How often do you see 1 and 2 just schedule a conference game in the middle of the season.
You don't.
Yeah, but Gonzaga is there now because they want to play the best teams they can in the regular season that aren't in their conference. And it's benefited them for the past 6 or so years, and it's why they're a powerhouse in college basketball now.
Definitely helps with recruiting. I mean, I just wish we saw this in football, but unfortunately, coaches like Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney and their athletic directors, they make sure that they really don't have any tough out-of-conference games.
They play the Citadel.
The Citadel isn't what they used to be, Mitch.
The
Citadel. It's unbelievable, but I applaud all the coaches in college basketball, but, the format of college basketball allows coaches to schedule people like that because you can have up to 10, 11, 12, 13. Shoot, you could go 500 and if half of your wins are ranked opponents, you're getting in. So you're allowed to lose in college. The margin for error in college football is so small, so I understand why college basketball does that. Are you afraid that this season doesn't make it all the way through since COVID numbers are ramping up and since, and I've said this almost every show, we are going to have a new administration running this country at the beginning of the year, I do believe. So, do you think the season, makes it?
The season will make it through, but will games get canceled? A lot of games get canceled and not made up? Yes, absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of games that get canceled. The NCAA is going to have March Madness this year because they've already made all the moves possible. They've already announced it's in one location, and they're not losing their money. The NCAA likes one thing, money. They like their money. They're going to get their money this year, which is why they're going to push for these teams to play. I think we could see what happens in college football if the games are canceled in advance. I think teams will get canceled for COVID. Other teams will go find another opponent to get games in. But the season will end. Will all the teams have the same amount of games or close to it? I don't think so. But NCAA wants their money. There's going to be March Madness, and that's all I care about.
I completely agree with you. And since I agree with you,
hey, switch it up.
It's time to switch it up. Here's Mitch Balla with the afternoon headlines. Mitch, go get it.
All right. Well, Jordan, first things first, I didn't even have this one down. Browns guard Wyatt Teller has landed on the COVID-19 restricted list. Are you worried if he is to miss the game?
Yeah, I'm definitely worried. That definitely throws off the chemistry on our offensive line. That's a huge miss. Teams often struggle when they're moving people around the offensive line. The Ravens do have some players that are out for the year and have been struggling with injuries, so I think they'll be okay. They're also going to get a little more rest before the Ravens game, so I think they could overcome that injury. But I am worried. That's not good.
It's not good. We saw how big of a piece he is for the Browns. Moving on, Kyrie Irving was granted a blackout from the media this season. Are you at all surprised that he will not have to have any media availability this year for the Nets?
Kyrie Irving is just a punk. He's just a punk, man. He is everything that I dislike about this new generation. Just really soft people. Be careful what you say because you might just, he might break. He's fragile. It's just, it's unbelievable. I have no words for Kyrie Irving. 0 words, and I'm not surprised.
And I'm glad you said be careful of what you say because Kyrie Irving in recent past has been on Kevin Durant's podcast and said something about finally playing with a player who he can give the ball to take clutch shots. LeBron James reacted to that on the Road Trippin' podcast with Richard Jefferson and Allie Clifton. Is Kyrie Irving right or wrong? And does LeBron have a reason to be upset?
Yeah, so when Kyrie Irving said that was a little while ago, but, the reason we're bringing it up, obviously, is because LeBron came out and, he finally said something about it. I think the shitty part about Kyrie doing that is that he did that in the midst of the NBA Finals. He knows what he's doing. Yep. He's not – Kyrie Irving's not dumb. Don't take his flat earth comment too far, everybody, because he's not dumb, and he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And so, if I was LeBron, I'd be hurt too because – yeah, could he have treated Kyrie more like a man, more like a brother and not a son sometimes? Sure, but he had his best interest at heart. I thought it was wrong that he said that. I don't know how you feel about that, but Kyrie Irving's never going to have success, I don't think, in this league again, and it's for many reasons, and this is certainly one of them.
Well, it looks like Kyrie Irving has already realized he can't be a number one. He has to go back to being a sidekick. And I completely disagree with his comments because there's one guy who has more clutch shots according to metrics in the NBA, and that was the guy Kyrie Irving played with. So I don't know how you get somebody that is more clutch when that's just not true. But hey, you put two snakes in the same team. I can't wait to see him fail because that's what's going to happen. Moving on, though, we're going to talk about another snake, and that's Paul George. Jordan, this week, Paul George reiterated, and I quote, "I want to retire a Clipper. Every year, this is where my heart is." But on June 30th, 2018, Paul George said that he was here to stay in Oklahoma City. And 3 years before that, Paul George said he wanted to finish his career with the Pacers because of Kobe Bryant. So, Jordan, where's Paul George going to end his career? Because it doesn't look like he stays in one spot very long.
Can you give me 1 minute, Mitch? Give me 1 second. Hold on.
Okay.
I don't care where Paul George ends up. Paul George will never win a championship. Paul George is hot garbage. Hot garbage. Not a Paul George fan. There is no playoff P, and if there is such thing as playoff P turns into what was that, Oscar the Grouch? What was that? Oh, yeah, hot garbage. That's who playoff P is. I don't care where he ends up. Where do you think he will end up?
I don't know, and I don't care because he's an overrated basketball player. We saw it in the playoffs last year, but Jordan, we saw him struggle in the playoffs last year, and he came out this week via All the Smoke podcast and explained why. And it was the way he was being used. He felt like Doc Rivers was trying to play him like Ray Allen or JJ Redick, all pin downs. He can do it, but that isn't his game, he said. That last season was just hard overall, which is why he's looking forward to Ty Lue as the head coach. Doc Rivers rebutted and said, Ty Lue was sitting right next to me. It's not going to be much different. Do you agree with Doc or Paul George?
I definitely agree with Doc. I don't think he was the right coach for that team, but I don't think any coach was the right coach for that team because they had just gotten together. I definitely agree with Doc. I do not believe it'll be any different at all.
Either do I. And besides, Paul George is the number 2 on that team behind Kawhi Leonard, but we'll see what happens. Jordan, moving on. Competitive breakdancing was announced to be coming to the 2024 Summer Olympics. How do you feel about that?
I'm so excited. That's what I really wanted to open the show up with, but you wouldn't allow me to. So I just needed to get that out there for everybody. It's a big deal.
We had to draw people in. I mean, we needed people to know that. We can't just give it away at the beginning. Moving on, friend of the show from last week, Malik Beasley, who was in the news for being out in public with Larissa Pippen while being married.
The balls on that guy.
Is now getting a divorce after his wife has filed for divorce after more leaked pictures of Larissa and Malik
gotcha,
have
bitch.
surfaced. Are you surprised? Not surprised?
I mean, a little bit because no, not really, because she's going to get a ton of money. I mean, just do it right now. And you don't have to be with a hot piece of garbage anymore. He's also a hot piece of garbage. Just be smart enough to not be seen in public. I mean, the first Who Has Bigger Ball series was a pastor who was having an affair for 6 months. And even in 6 months of an affair, they were never caught outside. Malik Beasley, step up your game. If you're going to cheat on your wife or your girlfriend, don't let people see you. Just let it be hearsay. Fool.
I mean, they make online shopping, Malik. You could have just stayed in the house with her. It's not that hard, dude. But hey, I don't know. I don't know what you're going through. So either way, Jordan, ESPN released the NBA player rankings 51 through 100 today. Lonzo Ball was at 54, ahead of the likes of Tyler Hero, Blake Griffin, D'Angelo Russell, and Zach LaVine. Is that too high, too low, or just right for Lonzo Ball?
Man, I don't want to say this because I was literally just talking about Lonzo Ball yesterday, and I think he could be really good. He's only 22. But man, that is really, 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 really high right now. Like based off of we can't put him in there assuming things. It's like when people say, "Oh,
right.
Well, Kevin Durant's like the best player." So no. I need to see him play a season. Like I need to see Lonzo come back and prove that he's not that good right now. He's not better than Tyler Hero, and I don't think he's probably better than any of those other teams. I don't know. I
don't think he's better than DeMar DeRozan, who was in the 60s of that rating.
Oh my gosh.
I think
no.
Yeah. I think it's way overrated for Lonzo Ball. But I just wanted to bring that up to you. 2 more. Longtime Cleveland Indian Carlos Santana, who we are not going to throw a party for because he was actually good, made good plays, has signed with the Kansas City Royals for 2 years, $17 million. So Indians are back to the drawing board, having only 3 position players penciled in the starting lineup next year.
Yeah, and
Not good. Not
and
good
you
luck.
don't want some of your best players going to other teams in your division. That's not good. So that's bad news for the Indians.
And historically, he has hit 327 in Kauffman Stadium, so it looks like somewhere he's comfortable with. And lastly, Jordan, before we move into college football, rumors are swirling that Jim Harbaugh is to be getting an extension to stay at the University of Michigan. 1, do you believe that? 2, why the hell would Michigan do that?
Yeah. So about the Harbaughs, I think both of them have enormous egos, and so much pride in their work. And it's, I may not like either of them, but I do respect that they take pride in their work. I actually do believe this. I think it would drive Jim Harbaugh. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh would be able to live with himself if he leaves Michigan, just because of the lack of success he's had at Michigan so far. And I think that really bothers him. And I think he truly believes deep down that he can figure it out. And he did, he did make sure the Buckeyes couldn't get a 6th game in this week. I think Jim Harbaugh stays 1 more year. What do you got?
Oh, I mean, I'm happy if they sign him because I love a free win. I mean, as we see Maurice, put in the chat, good more Ohio State wins. I couldn't agree more. It's gotten to a point now where we get to pencil in the Michigan game as a W because he doesn't know how to compete with us, doesn't know how to coach against us, makes no adjustments. He has some of the absolute worst coordinators in college football. He might have the worst defensive coordinator I've ever seen. And we've seen some bad ones with the Browns.
Oh, absolutely. It
But,
didn't
I mean,
start
Don
with Jim
Brown.
Harbaugh, though.
You're right. It didn't start with Jim Harbaugh, but Don Brown is atrocious. Jim Harbaugh hasn't even fired him or made an attempt to make a change. I think Michigan's stupid. I think he's way out of touch with the players. I think he belongs in the NFL and is not a college football coach. And I think they could easily get not as big of a name, but a good replacement that is in touch with players, can recruit a lot better, and get this team back to competing. But hey, sign Harbaugh to a lifetime contract. I'll take all the wins against him because I think he's a pretty poor collegiate coach.
You're not wrong. And that's Mitch Balla with the afternoon headlines. Let's roll into our last segment. Mitch, last segment is anything goes. Football rankings. We had a big game this last week between Coastal Carolina and BYU. I said
Game of the year.
And before it, both of you and I said that it felt like a big game. There hasn't been any other, even the Notre Dame game, Clemson game to me didn't feel like a big game, but this felt like a big game, and oh my gosh, they did not disappoint.
No.
I have more respect for BYU now, Mitch, than I did for them before they played Coastal Carolina. They packed up all their stuff on a short notice.
Yeah.
Was it Wednesday or was it Tuesday night or Wednesday they decided to play Coastal Carolina? But they had to get Wednesday. They had to get all their stuff from Utah, get it all the way out to Myrtle Beach. That's unbelievable. They fell. There was a lot of Titans Rams feeling that where you're getting stopped at the 1 yard line.
Oh yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of was I had vivid memories of that game on the Super Bowl almost 20 years ago. That was the greatest show on turf. What do you think about everything that's happening in college football right now? What do you think about the Buckeyes not being able to play this weekend?
Well, first things first, Coastal BYU was the game of the year. And it was just the best game to watch that I've watched in a long time. Coastal apparently is legit, but you're right. Hats off to BYU having everything to lose by scheduling that game. They wanted to get in the college football playoff, but they went out there and hey, they're done now, but it was worth it, I think. But we're going to get a lot of answers tonight. I believe 7:30 is the college football playoff rankings. And we're going to get some answers. Is Ohio State still 4 after their 40-some point win over Michigan State? Does Florida hop up after clinching a spot in the SEC championship game? Where does Iowa State go? Where's Oklahoma? These 2 lost teams that are somehow ahead of 1 loss and unbeatens. That makes no sense. Where's Georgia at? Last week they were at 8, I believe, which is way too high for them. But Jordan, Ohio State, Michigan, the game canceled this Saturday because Michigan has COVID. Does Michigan actually have COVID though? Does Michigan actually have COVID? Or did Jim Harbaugh last week go around and cough on all his players because they didn't want to get their ass handed to him? Ohio State opened as a 30-point favorite, the
That's
biggest.
Unbelievable.
The biggest in the rivalry. This will be the
Unbelievable.
first time in over 100 years the game gets canceled. Jim Harbaugh saved his ass because they definitely had enough to field a team. They have enough players to field a team. Now, well, would you want Ohio State to play them because it ruins their national championship hopes if they get COVID? Well, until we find a sixth game, our national championship hopes are on hold. So it doesn't matter. I wanted to blow the doors off them. There's no doubt in my mind if we won by 40 points against Michigan State and that bad team beat Michigan,
Yeah.
oh my God, the over-under on Ohio State alone should have been at 69.5 because Ohio State was easily scoring 70 on that bad secondary. And I'm so upset because of the comments we heard in the offseason between Harbaugh and Ryan Day, and Day threatened to hang 100 on him. I think there was a legitimate chance, and I think Harbaugh bitched out because he realized there was a legitimate chance.
I mean, we called this. Me and you said this 2 weeks ago, and it's, as far as I'm concerned, we broke the news on this entire issue.
Yep.
We were joking a little bit, but there was a lot of truth to it, and it turns out that it's reality now. It's a travesty that the line is basically 30 for this game, because the reason I love football more than any other sport, Mitch, is that every game matters. There's so much hanging on every game because you don't play as many games. And so, everything in my life that I love, it's risk-oriented, and everything is at stake. And there's usually a ton at stake for the Michigan-Ohio State game, and there's not a ton at stake this year. And it really, really bothers me. And it's unfortunate, and it's really unfortunate for some of the Michigan football players, because I know for a fact that some of the Michigan football players still want to play this game because that's why they went to Michigan. They, a lot of the Ohio State and Michigan players, they go there for the rivalry. It's just in my opinion, arguably the best rivalry it's my favorite rivalry in sports. I think most people would say it's not, just because it's a rivalry is when two teams have an equal chance of beating each other every year, and it's not an equal chance.
And it took Michigan an interim head coach to beat us. That's the last time they beat us. So, it's technically a rivalry, like you said, but Jordan, the competitive edge is gone because Michigan, the gap between Michigan and Ohio State is continuing to grow. And all I want to know is, this game was supposed to be played at the Shoe in Columbus without fans, of course. Now, does Ohio State get snubbed out of a home game next year and have to go back to Ann Arbor? I mean, not that it matters. I mean, sure, we won't have Justin Fields. We'll just have C.J. Stroud or Jack Miller or the true freshman quarterback coming in, which will be better than any quarterback Jim Harbaugh's ever had in his tenure. So that doesn't really bother me, but I just want to know if Ohio State gets snubbed out of a home game.
Oh, definitely.
That's my question. Definitely. Of course. So Harbaugh knew what he was doing, but it's not going to matter. We'll just go in there and, hey.
Well, I don't want to say Harbaugh knew what he was doing because it doesn't look like he knows what he's doing in any facet of his life right now. I don't know his personal relationships with his kids or his wife. Maybe he's a successful dad and husband, but it doesn't look like to me that he's playing anything. He's just kind of like the Joker running around, only he's having no success, and he's not very clever. And we've probably, honestly, man, it's unbelievable that somebody could be so, between the Cowboys and Jim Harbaugh. We've talked about those two teams just throughout the media for the last 4 months so much more than they should be talked about because they're losers. They're not winning. Segments should be reserved for winners. So we'll keep that in mind as we continue to make segments, because Jim Harbaugh, he's getting too much airtime on Cover Your Balls, and I don't like it. And so
we'll just have to make a loser segment, and we'll just talk about him in there.
We'll get on that.
Okay, we'll have that for next time we talk about what's his face.
Yeah, what's his face? So,
by the way, like what is his face though? Because have you seen how he wears his mic and mask? Like what the hell is that? Like, dude, are you trying to eat your mic? No wonder you can't win football games. You're eating your mic. Yeah. Like, what is wrong with you? I mean, I know people in Michigan are a different breed, but my God, Jim Harbaugh, that dude needs a lot of help.
I think it's just the state of Michigan. I mean, they couldn't even get, we had to wait for all their ballots and everything. Other states were done, and we're just sitting there waiting on Michigan. I think it's just the state of Michigan and anything up there. So maybe it's not Jim Harbaugh. We'll find out. Bigger news than that, though, we just found out Floyd Mayweather is going to box in an exhibition fight with Logan Paul, which means we are going to watch Logan Paul die on live TV. Why would Logan Paul do this? And does he think that he can, he has probably 30, 40 pounds on Floyd Mayweather, but Floyd Money Mayweather is a different type of animal, might be the best boxer of all time. You could easily make an argument for him. Does Logan Paul get knocked out in this exhibition versus Floyd Money Mayweather?
Well, I'm so happy you phrased that the way you did, because there's two reasons this fight's happening. Why is Logan Paul doing it? Because of what we're doing right now. We're talking about Logan Paul. His name is being thrown around everywhere. That's all he wants is the publicity. But now, is it Floyd Money Mayweather, or is there a chance that Floyd Mayweather is out of money, so he took the fight? That's something people aren't talking about. Mayweather has a lot of money, can't read, doesn't know what to do with his money, so who knows what he's done. Maybe he needs money. But we saw Nate Robinson get knocked out. We'll probably see Logan Paul get killed.
Well,
I mean, there's that.
Yeah, I think we will see him get killed, honestly. But getting killed might make him a lot of money. You know how much Nate Robinson made off his loss? $660,000, and he lost the fight. I don't know what Jake Paul got for winning the fight, but that's a lot of money. I don't know what the money is between Logan Paul and Money Mayweather, but Logan Paul is his own entity. So anytime that he can spread his name further, I mean, Impulsive, his podcast on YouTube is one of the biggest ones. He's thinking about coming on Cover Your Balls here in the future because he is an Ohio native. So hopefully maybe we can get a little interview of him before the fight. I think we're going to, guys. But yeah, I'll take Floyd Money Mayweather over him. Do you have any other things before we go into who has bigger balls?
None that I can think of.
All right, let's hop into our last segment. Take it away.
Who has bigger balls?
Mitch, who does have bigger balls? Is it Greg Williams for calling a zero blitz versus the Las Vegas Raiders, leaving an undrafted rookie cornerback one-on-one with one of the fastest guys in the NFL, Henry Ruggs III, which resulted in a touchdown for Oakland? Well, yeah, it's not Las Vegas. It's Oakland. Or is it Alex Smith for getting sacked last night in the first half of the game, and he took the ball off the field with him after he was sacked? That stopped the clock for his team. The ball got spotted, and Washington, which had no timeouts, was able to kick a field goal, which ended up being a huge 3 points. Mitch, who has bigger balls? Is it Greg Williams for calling a zero blitz when all he had to do was protect the end zone so the Jets could get their first win? Or is it Alex Smith for having the cojones to say, hey, this ball's mine, son. Game ball, first half, go.
I mean, Greg Williams got fired for what he did, and deservedly so. I mean, I was going to look like a genius if he just knew what he was doing, because I told you the Jets were going to beat the Raiders. But it's Alex Smith, because we know the Jets are purposely trying to lose. So Alex Smith is the one with bigger balls, because if he takes that ball off and the referees are aware of what's going on, because the Browns have gotten hosed before. We talked about this today a few years ago in Oakland. Players laying on top of our players. Don't get them off. No penalty flag. Run out of time. We lose the game. That field goal was huge for Washington last night in getting a little momentum in before halftime, getting points on the board, coming out, getting the ball to start the second half. But if Alex Smith gets caught doing that and they realize where the ball went, that cost your team points and a chance to get on the board. So because the Jets are purposely tanking, and because, Greg Williams apparently always has job offers lined up for him, Alex Smith has bigger balls.
Yeah. For the sheer fact that Greg Williams blitzes all the time, I can't say he has bigger balls. I didn't hate the call, Mitch. They've blitzed Derek Carr much of the game, which was one of the reasons why Derek Carr struggled so much. The issue with calling the zero blitz, though, even though I do like the call, I like the call with a different roster. You don't have a roster where you don't have cornerbacks that can play one-on-one with Oakland's wide receivers. So for that reason, it's a bad call. It's also a bad call because the Raiders needed a touchdown, so you just had to keep them out of the end zone. You force them to kick a field goal, you go to overtime. However, the Jets are 0-11, so we also need to remember that the Jets felt like they had nothing to lose, and that is what Greg Williams thought. Was I have nothing to lose, we're 0-11, but he did have something to lose. It was his job. Even though he was going to get fired after the season, he's getting fired early, which is a travesty that he gets fired before Adam Gase. It's definitely Alex Smith. It's definitely Alex Smith. That 3 points basically won Washington the game. Remember, they went into halftime down 14-3. That was the only points they scored in the first half. So that was huge. It was as big as ever because Chris Boswell did not kick for the Steelers yesterday. The Steelers had a backup kicker, which is why they didn't kick that field goal late. And people forgot that Chris Boswell's not around right now. And so that's why Mike Tomlin, the Steelers, went for it on fourth down. They didn't get it. Redskins go down the field. They win it. I'm going to go with Alex Smith. Guys, if you've watched this whole thing, we appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. The episode will be not live, but it will be on iTunes, Spotify, and other platforms, so you don't necessarily have to watch. Subscribe, tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your daddy. Hide your kids, hide your wife, because people coming through windows, they snatch your kids. But seriously, subscribe. We appreciate you. That's Mitch Balla. Oh, is this? Oh, no. That's Mitch Balla. I'm Jordan McKelly. And, well,
We'll see him Thursday.
we will see him Thursday. Thursday, December 10th. Subscribe. We love you guys. Well, at least some of you. Later.
Deuce.